There's a quiet pain that sits inside almost everyone you meet. It's the disappointment that comes from expecting too much, expecting others to understand us, to respect us, to give back what we give. We tell ourselves, I would never do that to them, but they do it to us, and each time, something inside tightens. A little more frustration, a little more distance, a little more loss of peace. Epictetus once said, when you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings. What he meant was simple: your peace doesn't depend on others. It depends on how little you demand from them. In this video, we'll explore the Stoic secret that Epictetus taught 2,000 years ago. How lowering your expectations isn't weakness, but freedom. This is the art of detachment, the power of letting go, and the beginning of true peace. Part 1. The problem of expectation. Most of us walk through life believing that people should treat us the way we treat them. We hold this quiet, invisible contract in our minds. If I'm kind, they'll be kind. If I'm honest, they'll be honest. If I show up, they'll show up too. Sounds fair, feels right, but reality doesn't play by that contract. People lie, they disappoint, they vanish when we need them most. And when they do, our first instinct is to ask, why would they do that to me? The Stoics would answer, because they're human just like you. 1. Expectation is a form of control. At the heart of every expectation lies a desire to control something or someone outside of ourselves. We expect others to think like we do, to value what we value, to love as we love. But the truth, as Epictetus would remind us, is that we control none of that. In his teachings, he divided life into two categories: what is up to us and what is not. What's up to us are our thoughts, our actions, our judgments, our choices. What's not up to us are the opinions, behaviors, and reactions of others. When we expect others to act a certain way, we cross the boundary from what's ours to what's theirs. And in doing so, we hand them the keys to our emotional state. You see, expectation doesn't just lead to disappointment, it leads to dependence. We depend on others to validate us, to reassure us, to make us feel safe and seen. We give away our peace in exchange for approval we may never receive. 2. How expectation creates suffering. Imagine this: you help a friend move. You spend your whole weekend carrying boxes, sweating under the sun. Later, when it's your turn to move, that friend doesn't show up. Immediately, your mind fills with anger. I helped him. He owes me. But who created that anger? Was it your friend's absence? Or your unspoken expectation that he would repay you in the same way? The Stoics would say, it's not the event that hurts you, it's your judgment about the event. Your mind decided that fairness should look a certain way, and when reality didn't match that image, pain appeared. Epictetus said, it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. In other words, disappointment doesn't come from what others do, it comes from what we believe they would do. 3. The modern trap. Today, expectation is everywhere. We expect replies to our messages instantly. We expect appreciation for our effort. We expect loyalty, kindness, consistency, all from people fighting their own unseen battles. But in a world where everyone carries their own struggles, expecting perfect behavior is like expecting calm seas during a storm. The problem isn't other people. The problem is that we've forgotten how to separate what's ours from what's theirs. When we measure others by our standards, we set ourselves up for endless frustration. We forget that people act based on their understanding, their upbringing, their wounds, not ours. The Stoics call this the blindness of assumption, believing others see the world as clearly as we think we do. 4. The hidden ego in expectation. Expectations often disguise themselves as fairness or moral standards. We say, it's only fair that they treat me with respect. But under that fairness lies ego, a subtle belief that we deserve special treatment for doing the right thing. Epictetus warned against this. He taught that to live in peace, we must accept the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. When someone fails you, that's not a cosmic injustice. It's simply another event in the flow of human behavior. The moment you stop personalizing it, you stop suffering. Marcus Aurelius echoed the same truth. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, "Today I shall meet people who are meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, and unsocial, but I will not be injured by them." This isn't pessimism. It's preparation. It's a mental armor against disappointment. When you expect the imperfection of others, you gain peace instead of pain. 5. The illusion of fairness. We live with a deep-seated belief that fairness is a natural law. We think kindness should be rewarded, truth should be valued, loyalty should be returned. But the universe doesn't operate on our emotional equations. Epictetus might say, "You can choose your actions, but not the outcomes." If you give with the hope of being given back, you've already attached a chain to your act of kindness. It's no longer generosity. It's a transaction waiting to be completed. Freedom begins when you act rightly for its own sake, not for a reaction. When you give without needing gratitude, when you love without demanding it in return, you reclaim your power. 6. The emotional cost. Every unfulfilled expectation builds a wall inside us. After years of disappointment, we grow guarded, skeptical, or even bitter. We start saying things like, "I don't trust anyone anymore." But Stoicism doesn't ask you to distrust people. It asks you to stop depending on them for your peace. When you lower your expectations, you're not becoming cold. You're becoming clear. You're saying, "I accept others as they are, not as I wish they were." And that acceptance, that quiet understanding, is what gives you strength. Because when you no longer need others to behave a certain way for you to be at peace, you finally become free. That's the problem of expectation. The invisible trap that keeps us chained to disappointment and resentment. But Epictetus didn't stop there. He offered a way out, a practical philosophy that can turn this pain into peace. Part 2, Epictetus' Wisdom, the Stoic Secret of Detachment and Freedom. When Epictetus spoke to his students, he didn't speak as a scholar or a man of theory. He spoke as someone who had suffered deeply. Born into slavery, he spent years under the command of another man, denied freedom, comfort, and dignity. Yet he became one of the most liberated minds in human history. How? By realizing that freedom doesn't come from changing the world, it comes from changing how you relate to it. This was Epictetus' great insight, his secret. He taught that the less you depend on others to shape your emotions, the more peaceful you become. And the way to do that begins with understanding what is truly within your control. 1. The 2 realms of control. Epictetus divided life into 2 simple realms. What is up to us? What is not up to us? This seems almost too simple, but it's one of the deepest truths in philosophy. What's up to us are things like our thoughts, our choices, our actions, our judgments. What's not up to us includes other people's behavior, the past, external events, outcomes beyond our influence. The Stoics taught that confusion between these 2 realms is the root of all suffering. When you expect something that isn't up to you, you surrender your peace to chance. Epictetus said, "Some things are within our power, while others are not." Happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of this principle. So if your peace depends on someone keeping a promise, or appreciating you, or loving you the way you love them, then your peace is no longer yours. You've handed it over, like a gift, to something outside your control. 2. The freedom of detachment. Detachment is often misunderstood. People imagine it as coldness, as if Stoics are emotionless stones that don't care about anyone. But Epictetus' detachment wasn't about not caring, it was about caring wisely. He taught that love without attachment is the purest kind of love. Because when you love without the chains of expectation, your love becomes a gift, not a bargain. You stop saying, "I'll love you if," and you start saying, "I love you because it's my nature to love." That's what detachment means, not withdrawing from the world, but participating in it with freedom. Imagine holding a bird in your hand. If you squeeze it tightly, trying to make sure it doesn't fly away, you'll crush it. If you hold it gently and let it rest freely, it might stay longer or it might fly off. Either way, your peace isn't lost. That's Stoic love. That's detachment. 3. Expectations and the chain of dependency. Epictetus believed that expectations are chains that bind the soul. Every time you say, "They should have done this," or "I can't believe they treated me that way," you add another link to that chain. But when you start saying, "They acted according to their nature, and I will act according to mine," you begin to break free. It's not indifference, it's independence. You can care about people deeply, yet not let your happiness rise and fall with their behavior. Epictetus told his students a story. When you kiss your child or your friend, remind yourself that you're kissing a mortal, a being who can leave you at any moment. Not because you should love them less, but because you should love them more wisely. In modern terms, he's saying love without illusion. Appreciate what you have without assuming it's yours to keep. This mindset transforms gratitude from something fragile into something permanent. 4. The mirror of self-mastery. Every time someone offends you, disappoints you, or fails you, that moment becomes a mirror. It reflects back how attached you are to their behavior. Epictetus would challenge his students. When someone acts wrongly toward you, say, "It seemed right to them." This doesn't mean you condone their actions. It means you recognize that others act from their own understanding, limited, imperfect, and often shaped by pain. Once you see that, anger softens. You realize that other people's actions aren't about you. They're about their perception of the world. And your peace, that's about yours. The Stoic practice is to bring every emotional reaction back to this question. Is this within my control? If not, then it's not worth your suffering. 5. The true power of letting go. Epictetus didn't promise a painless life. He promised a meaningful one where peace comes not from things going your way, but from staying steady no matter how they go. To expect less from others doesn't mean to isolate yourself. It means to stop making others responsible for your emotional balance. When someone forgets you, you can still remember yourself. When someone disrespects you, you can still live with dignity. When someone leaves you, you can still stand where you are. That's freedom, the kind no one can take from you because it lives inside, where no one else has access. 6. The practice of perspective. In the Enchiridion, Epictetus advises, when you are going to take delight in anything, remind yourself what kind of thing it is, beginning from the most insignificant. If you admire someone's praise, remind yourself it's just sound. If you crave someone's approval, remember it's just opinion. If you suffer from someone's neglect, remember it's just a moment in time. By reducing things to their nature, you remove their power over you. You begin to see clearly that no one's words, gestures, or failures can disturb you unless you let them. This clarity isn't detachment from life, it's awakening within life. It's how the Stoic walks through a world full of chaos, yet remains calm inside. 7. Modern reflection. Think about how often you check your phone, waiting for a reply that never comes. Or how often you replay an argument in your head, wishing someone had said something different. Each of those moments is a small surrender of power. What if you could take it back? What if your peace didn't depend on a text, a tone, or a reaction? Epictetus would say that's possible right now by remembering the boundary of control. When you stop demanding that others meet your expectations, you begin to meet yourself, fully, honestly, and without condition. And that's the essence of Stoic freedom, not the absence of care, but the presence of clarity. Epictetus' wisdom offers a radical yet gentle invitation to shift your attention from others to yourself, from control to acceptance, from expectation to understanding. But philosophy means little without practice. In the next part, we'll bring these ideas down to earth. We'll explore how to live Epictetus' wisdom, how to apply it in your relationships, your work, and your everyday life, so you can build connections rooted not in expectation, but in freedom. Part 3, applying Epictetus' wisdom in modern life. It's one thing to understand Stoic wisdom, it's another to live it. Because the truth is, Epictetus' lessons don't truly come alive in books or quotes. They come alive when someone ignores your message, when someone betrays your trust, when someone fails to see your worth and you decide to stay calm anyway. That's when Stoicism stops being philosophy and becomes strength. So how do we bring this teaching, expect less from others, into the real world? How do we live with open hearts, yet untangled minds? Let's explore. 1. In relationships, love without control. Relationships, whether romantic, family, or friendship, are where our expectations run the deepest. We want people to understand us, to appreciate us, to meet us halfway. And when they don't, we take it personally. But Epictetus would remind us, if you want something, you must be prepared for the possibility of not getting it. Every time you expect someone to make you happy, you give away your freedom. Because happiness built on another person's behavior is a house built on sand. The Stoic approach isn't to stop loving, it's to stop clinging. Love fully, but love without demands. That means, listen without needing them to listen back. Give without measuring what you get. Forgive without waiting for an apology. When you do this, love becomes lighter and purer. You no longer love for validation, you love for connection. In practice, this might mean noticing when disappointment rises. And instead of saying, "They don't care about me," you say, "They're acting according to their understanding. My peace remains my own." This shift doesn't make you colder. It makes you wiser, because the less you require from others, the more space you create for compassion. 2. At work, managing expectations in an unpredictable world. The modern workplace is a perfect training ground for Stoic calm. People will misunderstand you, criticize you, overlook your effort, and sometimes you'll do everything right, but still not get the result you hoped for. Epictetus would tell you, focus only on what is up to you. Your preparation, your honesty, your effort, these belong to you. But promotions, recognition, praise, these belong to fortune. So when you're overlooked or unappreciated, remind yourself, I did what was right. The rest is not mine. This isn't resignation. It's resilience. It allows you to keep doing your work with excellence, without bitterness or burnout. Imagine how freeing it would be to show up each day, doing your best not for applause, but because it's who you choose to be. That's what Epictetus called living in accordance with nature, doing what's right and letting go of the rest. 3. With family, understanding without expecting. Family can be the hardest place to practice Stoicism, because we often assume that family should understand us best. But in reality, they may be the people most different from us. Epictetus would gently say, don't expect figs in winter, meaning don't expect from others what they cannot give. Your parents may not express love the way you wish. Your siblings may not support your dreams. Your children may not take your advice. But love doesn't always need to be symmetrical to be real. You can love others as they are, not as you wish they'd be. When you accept this, you stop trying to control their understanding, and instead, you focus on your own peace. You start to see that even imperfect love can still be genuine. 4. On social media, freedom from approval. We live in a world that runs on validation, like shares, comments, small bursts of approval that feed the ego but starve the soul. Epictetus lived centuries before social media, but his wisdom fits perfectly here. He said, if you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. In today's language, that means, don't chase approval, chase truth. When you post something online, when you share your thoughts or work, ask yourself, am I doing this for expression or for validation? Because if your peace rises and falls with every like or comment, you've made your happiness dependent on strangers' opinions. That's not freedom, that's captivity disguised as connection. The Stoic path is quieter but stronger. Create, share, express, but don't attach your worth to the reaction. Let your intention, not attention, define your value. 5. In friendship, letting go of unspoken contracts. Friendship is often built on invisible agreements. I'll be there for you, and you'll be there for me. But life doesn't always honor that symmetry. People get busy, distracted, or lost in their own storms. The Stoic way is not to demand constant reciprocity, but to act from integrity. Be a good friend because it's who you are, not because you expect it back. This doesn't mean tolerating disrespect or abuse. Stoicism isn't submission. It simply means that your kindness should be a reflection of your character, not a response to someone else's behavior. When you stop keeping score, you gain peace. And when you do get kindness in return, it feels like a gift, not a debt repaid. 6. With strangers, compassion without expectation. Every day, we meet people who are rude, careless, or inconsiderate. Epictetus would say, "Remember that you must behave in life as at a banquet," meaning, take what's offered, be patient with what's not, and leave the table when it's time without complaint. When a stranger cuts you off in traffic, or a cashier speaks harshly, you can practice this. Pause, breathe, tell yourself, they act from their own condition. It's not about me. By doing this, you train your mind to detach your peace from random moments of rudeness. It's not weakness, it's emotional mastery. You begin to see how rare calmness is, and how powerful it can be when you choose it. 7. In loss and change, expecting impermanence. Epictetus taught his students to see the temporary nature of everything. He said, "When you kiss your child, say to yourself, tomorrow he may die." This sounds dark, but it's actually a teaching of love and presence. Because when you remember that everything and everyone is temporary, you stop taking them for granted. You love deeper because you know it won't last forever. Expecting less doesn't mean feeling less. It means feeling more truly, without illusions, without denial. You learn to cherish what is, not what should be. In modern life, this means noticing the fleeting beauty in small things. A conversation, a smile, a quiet morning, and realizing that each one is enough. 8. The result, freedom, not isolation. When you apply Epictetus' wisdom, something subtle shifts inside you. You begin to carry a calm that doesn't depend on others behaving perfectly. You start to forgive faster, to react slower, to understand deeper. People will notice. Some might even say you've become distant or detached. But what they're really seeing is peace, a kind of peace they haven't found yet. You'll still care, you'll still feel, but you'll stop clinging. And that's where true freedom begins. This is the heart of Stoic living in the modern world. To care deeply yet expect little. To act with kindness yet need no reward. To stand firm in your principles, even when the world sways around you. That's not coldness, that's maturity. That's clarity. That's Epictetus' secret brought to life. Part 4, the practice. Training the mind to expect less and live freely. Philosophy means nothing unless it's lived. Epictetus never meant for Stoicism to stay in dusty books or lofty speeches. He believed philosophy was a daily discipline, a way of shaping the mind so it could stay calm no matter what the world does. So, how do you practice expecting less from others without becoming cold or detached from life? How do you train your mind to find peace in a world full of disappointment, misunderstanding, and unmet expectations? Let's walk through some Stoic practices, timeless, simple, and deeply transformative. 1. Morning clarity. Setting intentions, not expectations. Each morning, before the world demands your attention, spend a few minutes in quiet reflection. Marcus Aurelius began his days reminding himself, "Today I shall meet people who are meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious, and unsocial. But I cannot be injured by them." This wasn't cynicism, it was preparation. It's like a mental warm-up for the day's emotional challenges. When you wake up, remind yourself, people will act according to their nature. I will act according to mine. My peace depends on my choices, not theirs. You can even write this down or repeat it like a short mantra. I release control over others. I will not expect, I will simply act. When you begin your day from that place of awareness, you enter the world already free. No one can take your peace because you didn't outsource it to begin with. 2. Evening reflection, the Stoic review. At the end of each day, Epictetus advised his students to review their actions. Not to judge themselves harshly, but to learn gently. He suggested asking 3 questions. What did I do well today? What did I do poorly? What could I do differently next time? In the context of expectations, this reflection becomes powerful. You can ask yourself, did I expect too much from someone today? Did I let another person's actions decide my emotions? Where could I have focused more on my own responses instead of theirs? Writing down your answers helps reveal patterns, moments where attachment or disappointment keeps showing up. With awareness, change begins naturally. This nightly practice trains your mind to see reality clearly, without resentment or fantasy. 3. The practice of control, drawing the line. Epictetus taught his students to mentally separate events into two parts. Within my control, my choices, words, reactions, my effort and discipline, my honesty and intentions. Beyond my control, other people's behavior, my reputation, how others perceive me. Whenever frustration arises, pause and ask, which column does this belong to? If it belongs to the second column, let it go. This small exercise rewires your thinking over time. You'll start noticing how often your mind tries to control the uncontrollable, and how much lighter life feels when you stop trying. It's like dropping stones from your backpack one by one. The less you carry, the freer you move. 4. Practicing detachment in real time. Imagine you're texting someone, and they don't reply. Instantly, your mind starts spinning. Did I say something wrong? Are they ignoring me? That's the moment to practice. Pause. Breathe. Remind yourself, their silence belongs to them, not to me. Return to your work, your breath, your presence. Every time you resist the urge to react, you strengthen a mental muscle, the muscle of detachment. Soon, you begin to notice you no longer need constant reassurance. You don't take things so personally. You don't rush to conclusions. This is how Stoicism works. Not through big, dramatic realizations, but through small daily choices to remain steady. 5. Gratitude without attachment. Expectations and gratitude cannot coexist. The more you expect, the less you appreciate. The more you appreciate, the less you expect. To practice Stoic gratitude, look at every kindness or act of love as a gift, not a guarantee. If a friend helps you, be thankful. If they don't, accept it as life's balance. Epictetus would say, don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do, and you will go on well. When you live this way, every good moment feels like a blessing, not a duty fulfilled. Even small gestures become radiant because you stopped insisting the world owes you anything. 6. The pause between action and reaction. In moments of anger or hurt, Stoicism teaches the art of the pause. Before responding, stop and observe your emotion. Marcus Aurelius practiced this by asking, what is this thing that is now happening to me? Does it make me worse? Does it destroy my virtue? If it doesn't, then it's harmless. So when someone insults you or acts unfairly, try this. Count your breaths. See the emotion rise, then fall. You'll realize emotions are just visitors. They don't have to stay unless you invite them in. This single habit, pausing before reacting, can transform your relationships more than any advice, because it gives you the space to choose peace over pride. 7. Turning expectations into standards. There's a difference between expectations and standards. Expectations control others. Standards guide yourself. Expectations say, they should treat me better. Standards say, I will treat people with respect, no matter how they act. Expectations look outward. Standards look inward. When you replace expectations with standards, you regain authority over your life. You stop chasing fairness and start living with integrity. Epictetus often said, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Live your principles so clearly that you don't need to demand anything from others. Your calmness, your patience, your consistency, these become your unspoken philosophy. 8. Practicing amor fati, the love of fate. One of the deepest Stoic practices is amor fati, the love of fate. It means not just accepting what happens, but embracing it as necessary. When someone disappoints you, instead of saying, why did this happen? Try saying, perhaps this needed to happen, to teach me patience, to strengthen my understanding. That simple reframe turns pain into power, transforms disappointment into wisdom. This doesn't mean you enjoy being mistreated. It means you see everything as part of your training in calmness and resilience. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The obstacle is the way." So when someone fails you, think, this is the test. This is where Stoicism leaves the page and enters my life. 9. Choosing peace over justice. Our sense of justice often fuels our expectations. We want fairness. We want balance. But Stoicism teaches that the world doesn't owe us emotional symmetry. You can still fight for justice in the outer world, but inside, you choose peace. You let go of needing life to be fair before you can be calm. When you master this, you become unshakable. The behavior of others can no longer dictate your inner weather. 10. Practicing through small disappointments. Start small. Let the world train you gently before it tests you greatly. If someone forgets to say thank you, smile inwardly. A chance to practice detachment. If a driver cuts you off, breathe, an opportunity to practice patience. If a friend cancels plans, accept, another moment to practice freedom. Each small moment is like a stoic gym. Every challenge is a repetition that builds inner strength. And over time, you find that you no longer bend so easily under the weight of others' behavior. You remain upright, calm, composed, centered. Practicing Stoicism is not about escaping life. It's about living it with grace. Lowering your expectations doesn't mean lowering your standards. It means raising your understanding. You start to see that peace doesn't come from controlling the people around you, but from mastering the person within you. Part 5, Closing Reflection. The freedom of expecting less, the power of loving more. There's a strange paradox at the heart of Stoicism. When you expect less from others, you actually begin to love them more. Sounds backwards at first. How could detachment lead to love? But when you think about it, most of our frustration, most of our disappointment, comes from our expectations, not from the people themselves. It's not that someone's actions hurt us. It's that we wanted something different from them. We wanted them to say the right words, to remember, to understand. And when they don't, we suffer not because of what is, but because of what we imagine should be. Epictetus saw this clearly. He said, "When you kiss your child, say to yourself, he may not be here tomorrow." This is not to darken your joy, but to deepen it. This is the Stoic form of love. Not clingy, not demanding, but clear-eyed and free. You love because you know nothing is guaranteed. You appreciate because you know how fragile everything is. When you expect less, you stop trying to own what was never yours. And suddenly, you find gratitude in places where there used to be resentment. 1. The beauty of letting people be themselves. When you drop expectations, something miraculous happens. You begin to see people as they are, not as you want them to be. The friend who's always late, the partner who forgets small details, the colleague who doesn't share your passion. They stop being disappointments and start being people. People with their own stories, wounds, and reasons. You stop trying to fix them and start learning from them. This doesn't mean you tolerate harm or abandon boundaries. It simply means you no longer confuse acceptance with approval. Acceptance is seeing reality clearly. Approval is agreeing with it. The Stoic practices acceptance, because that's where peace begins. 2. Freedom is emotional independence. Epictetus was born a slave. He spent years under the control of another man. And yet, he was freer than most people today because his mind could not be enslaved. He taught that true freedom is the ability to remain unmoved by what you cannot control. It's the art of choosing peace even when the world is unjust, unpredictable, or indifferent. He said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." When you stop expecting others to give you what you think you need, respect, love, recognition, you begin to supply it for yourself. You no longer beg for emotional scraps. You no longer build your identity around the approval of others. You become self-sufficient in the most beautiful sense, not lonely, but whole. 3. The paradox of love without expectation. Love, when purified of expectation, becomes stronger, not weaker, because it's no longer based on need. You don't love someone because they make you happy. You love them because it's your nature to love. You don't show kindness because you expect gratitude. You show kindness because it aligns with who you choose to be. This kind of love is unshakable. It doesn't crumble when ignored, or sour when unreturned. It simply flows, steady, quiet, and unconditional. This is what Epictetus meant when he said, "Seek not that events should happen as you will, but will them as they happen, and your life will flow smoothly." It's not about controlling the outcome. It's about aligning your heart with reality, so that peace and love are no longer at war with the truth of the world. For what happens when you expect less? When you expect less, do you start noticing more? Do you stop rushing to judgment? Do you find joy in simple things? A quiet morning, a kind word, a moment of stillness. Do you stop chasing fairness and start embodying balance? And in that stillness, you begin to realize you were never angry at others. You were angry at the gap between your imagination and reality. When that gap closes, life becomes lighter. You stop fighting what is. You start moving with it. This is not resignation, it's maturity. It's the wisdom of understanding that peace is not something you find at the end of control. It's something you uncover when you finally stop trying to control. 5. Epictetus' final lesson. At the end of his teachings, Epictetus offered a simple formula for serenity, one that has guided Stoics for centuries. Happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. Everything else follows from that truth. Expect less from what you cannot control, people, fortune, outcomes. Expect more from what you can, your attitude, your virtue, your inner calm. If you live this way, life will still bring challenges. People will still disappoint you, but you will no longer collapse under it. Because your peace will be anchored in something unshakable, your own reasoned choice. A closing meditation. As you finish this reflection, take a deep breath. Think of one person who has let you down recently, and silently say, "I release you from my expectations. You are free to be who you are, and I am free to be at peace." Notice how your body feels, the softening in your chest, the quiet in your mind. This is the peace Epictetus promised. Not a life without pain, but a life beyond it. When you stop expecting, you start living. When you let go, you make room for gratitude. When you detach, you finally connect, not through control, but through understanding. And in that space of calm acceptance, you find what every Stoic seeks, a freedom that no one can take away. If this message resonated with you, remember, the goal isn't to stop caring. It's to care more wisely, to live without resentment, to love without demand. Epictetus didn't want followers, he wanted free souls. And perhaps that's what we're all searching for. Not a world that always meets our expectations, but a mind that no longer depends on them.